Okay, everyone, I know there's many videos about this online. There's some really great ones. Guys have these right on a table to show you all the inner workings and what might be wrong. But I'm going at this from the approach, of your average homeowner. Maybe you're not super into getting into this kind of repair. Things look too frightening. I don't know. But I'm going to take a practical approach, what any homeowner should be able to do if it's a manual thing like this. So unplug it first. There's a couple simple things you can check just to get started. This is actually an iron removal machine, same top as a water softener. So my brine tank is it's a potassium permanganate tank, but we'll just call it a brine tank for now. Same thing. So what's happening is it's actually overflowing, and that could be a float issue in the tank, but we're going to start easy here. So on the back here, now I have a mirror set up. This is the drain tube that goes to a drain somewhere. The brine both fills the brine tank, and plus it pulls the mixture out and saturates the whatever media is in here, whether it's a softener or a green sand tank, whatever. So there's a very easy way to see initially if there's a blockage, both in the drain, if there's a blockage with the drain pipe. And there is a small little flow control. It's like a little wee grommet in back here. But we can find out if that's an issue, or we can find out if this tube is plugged. Because regardless of what's happening, when I get this apart, you'll see this is like a brine control valve, this whole section here. But you can do some initial things to figure out, maybe it's just something simple, like something's plugged or something. So what you can do is you manually go through the settings. So the first setting here, it goes into a back rinse, and right away there, if you can verify that there's flow going into your drain through the rinsing, this is the pipe that goes to the drain where it backwashes and stuff and rinses. Should be some decent water flow out of there. Could be plugged. Now, as we advance along here, now here we get to the brine and rinse position, and I hope you can see in the mirror. So what's happened, it's turned to this, and there's a cam here that starts pushing down. This is the brine control, the brine valve. So anyways, it forces this valve down, and that should initiate a suction on here. And if possible, if you can see the water level, observe the water level, and since it's not plugged in, it's going to sit at that position for as long as you want. At this stage, when it's in the brine plus rinse, that's where it should be sucking the stuff out of your bucket and filling up this tank. Now, if it's not sucking stuff out of there, so if it's not doing that, there's an issue, of course. But as it goes along, and as we go along, we get into, again, another rapid rinse. Again, there should be water coming out of the backwash pipe here, the drain pipe. And then, back here you can see this white cam. Now this one's going to come up here in the next stage, and it pushes down the brine valve. And that is the point where it should be filling up your brine tank. So visually you should be able to see that happening. And the water level should start increasing in your brine tank or your holding tank for the water, and whether it's salt or potassium permanganate. So if all that's happening, probably it's working properly. But in my case, when it's in the backwash, all works, good flow, great in all those positions where it should be backwashing. There's no suction, it's not pulling stuff out of the tank here. So let's do the first very basic thing that a homeowner should do. And I think anyone is capable of this, because this is the most common reason, which I'll show you, that it doesn't work. So let's get into that. Before you take anything apart, turn off, this is the service valve here. Turn that off. Yeah, please do that. Or if you don't have this valve, you have to turn off your house water. And then, before you take anything apart, run this through, just turn it, actually you can turn it and leave it to the brine plus rinse, and it takes the pressure out. Yeah, if you don't turn that valve off, and if you don't take the pressure out, water's going to come spraying out of here like crazy. So depressurize the tank. So here we are on the front. Now on the side, there's two bolts here. We're just going to take those two out. And this is like the most common thing you should do first. You should do this. This actually ends up resolving 90% of the problems that people have with these things, because there's a little filter in here. You're going to get some water coming out of here. That's normal. Alright, so we took off the cover. And then there's this screen. These screens are often plugged up. So that's a big issue. Got to go and keep the screen. It's stainless steel. Wash it out. Might have to use a little bit of vinegar, something like that. Okay, so the second thing to take out is this here. It's kind of like a little Venturi type thing. Get this out. It has a little fine hole through it, and you have to make sure that that's clear. And then further in, there's another one, just using a standard flathead here. There's one that's way down in there. At this point, we can take this off. We might be able to get this to shake out for us here. This will come out if you angle it. There, I just knocked it out like that. And it's another little screw with a very fine hole in it. Make sure that that is clear. Okay. So at that point, now I had to knock this out to, I couldn't get the thing to come out without banging it out. But normally you can leave this up in place. And if the screen was plugged, or that little Venturi, those little holes were plugged, that's probably all the issue is, and you don't have to go any further. You're just clean them out, put them back in, put it back together. But today, we're going to move ahead. Now this is the brine valve. This, do some jiggling, shake it out. So if this thing is messed up, or it's not working properly, or the seals are bad, this is what I would probably go with as my sort of second stage. I'd replace this. But in my mind, if I'm going to replace this, if this is worn out, probably the rest is getting pretty worn out too. These don't really fail all that often, so everything's getting old in this thing. And by the way, there is a O-ring that is way down there. You do get a new O-ring with the kit. So let's try get that O-ring out. There's the O-ring. You get one with the kit again, so we'll replace that. I would go with that if that's, and then just put it back together and give her a go. It'll probably work. But given how mine's reacted, even when it's in positions, the dial's in positions where it should not be pushing water through here, I'm getting water flowing through there. So basically we're gonna have to replace the piston valves, which I'll show you how to do. Okay, I just wanted to give you a little update here. I did receive the softener valve rebuild kit. So just go through what it comes with. This is the, I guess, part of the piston anyway. And I guess things change over time, but you know, you just put this like this and then it attaches. So now you have the full set assembly there. And really these are the seals for the piston. Thing that I would suggest is individually check each one, and I'll tell you why. For some odd reason, actually I've never actually knew, or I don't know if these always did come apart like this, but this one wasn't fully assembled, so you want to make sure that, you know, they're all assembled properly. And they're, at first I thought it was broken, but you just have to find the right spot. There's little pins pushed together, make sure it's seated nicely. and then you would just continue on. Voila, so that's that completed. They give you this little screw. This is actually to replace, I just use your old one if you want, but if you don't have it, this is the screw for here, because that needs to slide around in there. And then this is the brine valve. The only thing I can say with these, with the Fleck 5600, now verify this for yourself, but there are different brine valves, and if you have a newer 5600, or I think the electronic ones, I have the very oldest one, so it has its brine valve actually is a little bit longer. That's what I've been finding. And there's another one that has a notch, like a little notch around the top. If you have the older system like I have, make sure you get the right thing. But this looks like the right one, just I can tell just from looking at it. Now for my particular unit, you can go on Amazon. In Canada, these are really expensive actually. This is like, after all our taxes are added in and stuff, it was like 110 bucks. Guess how much they are in the United States? I saw some around average $37, $45, you know, sort of in that range. So we're so lucky up here in good old Canada. Anyway, let's get at it. The other thing that you're going to need if you're going to perform this maintenance, you need this silicone lubricant. Now, be careful, read, see what it's for, because they're not all the same. This stuff specifically says that it will not damage rubber. There's other products that say they're silicone, but they still have petroleum products in them that will damage the seals. So make sure you get the right stuff. This is by Moen, and it's kind of expensive. Well, in Canada it is. It's like 10 bucks for this tiny little bit. Anyways, you're gonna need this. Okay, so you're looking at the mirror here, so you can sort of see the back. Now to take off the top here, the timer part, very easy. There's two screws. One here, one here. These two are the initial ones, but these ones are longer than the next ones I'm going to show you that we'll have to take out. Alright, now it should pop off. Might have to jiggle this a bit, and that will... There, we got it popped off. Oh! And there you go, just lift it up. Okay, so we got the timer off. There's 3 bolts. I just took them out, one here, there, and here. Just little bolts. Take those out, lift this up. Grab hold of the piston, and it should come out. Of course, not all the spacers and washers came out, but we'll get them. Stick your finger in there. I'm just making sure there's no rubber washer stuck down there. Okay, so it's all good. We have everything apart. It's really not that tough, guys and girls. Put the little O-ring in here. Check my light. It just sits down right at the bottom, so make sure it's nice and flat at the bottom. I think I got her. Put this in at this point. So just push the piston in. That's alright. Okay, so now we have to put back in those little Venturi things that I took out. Okay, and if you can't remember the top, first put in that longer one. So just snug it up in there. Don't go crazy with the tightening again. And then the second one we have to put in. And again, don't super tighten it, just snug it in there. And here's the cover. It does have an O-ring on there, so I will put a little bit of lube around it. Don't need much. And really this can only go on one way. There's a long edge and a short edge. It's longer here, shorter there, so that's pretty straightforward. The screen, make sure the screen is in the bottom. It doesn't really matter which way it goes in. There's a couple of O-rings here, backside. Give them a little bit of grease. Line it up nice, and you should be able to start these by hand. And the trick to tightening up stuff too, try to tighten them up evenly on each side. Don't screw one in really tight and then tighten the other one. You kind of do them in an even fashion, so as they tighten up, go to each side. And that way it's going to seal up nice and square. Again, just snug. Okay, so we're all ready. Let's put the valve back in here. And what I suggest, now what I noticed with the parts that I ordered, they seem to be, they're already coated with a little bit of silicone lube. I'm not too concerned about that, but the inside here is very dry leading in. So I'm just taking a small amount of the silicone lube here and just give it a very thin coat. Don't need much. Again, it's just going to help things slide in easy and hopefully prevent any damage. Make sure it's clean in here. It is clean. So let's go ahead. And get this together. Super easy. Okay, so it's very easy to do. As I said, it doesn't matter if these are up or down. There's no set way. But slide it in there. All it's important, make sure you get it down to the bottom and it's seated nice and flat. So we put the rubber washer in first and then the plastic spacer. Take your time with each one and make sure they're pushed down properly. Now the piston, what I will do on this, I'm going to put, again, just to prevent damage, I'm going to put some little bit of silicone grease on it. Not too much, you just want a coating on there. And this should slide down nicely. Again, take your time, be gentle, and there we go. And if you did everything properly, it should actually be sitting, I don't know, maybe that's about 1/8 of an inch above the top edge. The next step, you have to put on the metal plate. Now the metal plate, just slides into place, and make sure it's sitting above the brine valve here, because what it does, it's also going to put pressure down on the brine valve and seal it also as you tighten it down. So let's get the bolts or screws, whatever you want to call them. And so it's 3 here. And what I'm going to talk about here too, I mean, this is, I'll try to get this light going better. I'm working in kind of a difficult, not a lot of access here. It's a little bit rough, but there's one there, one here. Again, start things by hand. Make sure they're threading in properly. And one thing they don't tell you in a lot of these videos, whenever you're doing stuff like this where you're tightening down, because right now of course the valve, it's above, right? So we have to tighten it down, and it's going to push this valve down into place. And it's super important that you do this in stages. So just start tightening, get a little bit of pressure. You can feel it as you turn it. Turn here, go over here. And you want to do this all in steps, because you don't want to just tighten down a corner. Things will get out of alignment. It won't seal properly. So again, take your time. Go through the steps. And again, you shouldn't have to super tighten things. That should be good. And in theory, this valve should move. That seems to be doing its thing. Alright. Go on to the next step. All that's left, really, we'll put the timer up on there, and we'll do some testing. Next step, we need to get the timer back on here. So again, when you take it off, there's a notch here, so this has to fit through a hole in the bottom. So, you know, just get everything sort of lined up. There we go. Spin it forward a little bit, and it should lock into that little tab. Okay, that feels good. And one thing you can do at this point, if I can, this mirror adjusted. Now, hopefully, yes, you can see it. So you have to get the piston lined up again on this main gear, and you can do that just by turning it. And it will find a spot, and then it snaps in. So at this point, you can leave it loose. And let's get that screw in the back there. The screw does not need to be super tight, because this has to move freely. So we're just going to get this in, start it by hand. There we go, and give it a little tighten. I'll have to move the mirror. Not much. There we go. And there's only 2 spots, so you need to tighten this down. There. You can just feel it. Make sure it's on there snug. So let's test the valve. Like, this is moving, wow. Compared to how it was before, this is moving super smooth, so that's a nice sign. Before, I actually had to grab the back here and force it. It was so tight. But here we go. I'm going to get the system, we're going to turn, I'll move the mirror now. Nothing more to see in the back, really. Just going to make sure it's in the service position. And we're going to turn the water on here. And if there's going to be a leak, you're going to see a leak right now. Again, I'm just in a bad spot for me, but there we go. The water is now on. No leaks initially, so very good sign. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to cycle it through real quick before I do actual testing. Now it's under pressure. It moves That is amazing so far. Before, I don't even know how it turned before. It was so tight. I guess that's a sign if the piston valve, the main one, if it's gone bad, this is going to be really hard to turn. And right now, I'm just so I can't even believe it actually. Before I almost had to put a wrench on this thing to turn it. So, okay, we're gonna get into some testing here. So before we test here, one thing I'm gonna do just to make sure that everything's working fine. I have a screwdriver here, and when I put this down here, the screwdriver just barely touches the surface of the amount of water that's down there, or mixture, brine, solution, or potassium permanganate in this case. And I'm going to move the switch here. So I still don't have this plugged in, so it's going to stay at its position no matter what. So we're going to come up here, and I'm going to, because my biggest issue wasn't drawing the brine or the solution out, so let's get this over right into the brine. Just listen. So now it's starting to kick in there now. So what should happen, we'll let this run for a few minutes, and I'm going to come back with the screwdriver and we'll test that level down there and see if it's gone down. You should be able to see it visually move after a few minutes, but you know, we have a measuring device. We'll use that. Okay everyone, I let it run through a cycle and it's working just fantastic. And one thing that I was concerned about, if it would refill properly down in the tank. And this is something you're going to have to monitor a little bit. I did drain a lot of the liquid out of there to begin with. I do have an excessive amount of, you know, if it wasn't salt, it's if it's a salt tank, that would be salt or potassium permanganate for my iron removal machine. So I have a lot in there, but I can see a little bit of water down there. There's actually a mesh filter that's about an inch down lower than that where you can see the water. So to me that's good. It should just be touching the bottom of that mesh, and I'm gonna have to watch a few cycles and see, you know, if it's gonna fill too much or not enough. And that's just simply that little white adjustment on the very back of the machine, which we talked about. That controls, I don't know if I have it here. Yeah, I do. So if it's working all fine and dandy, so in the mirror, it's the white cam here. There's markings on it. You'll have to look at it, but if it's not filling enough, you'll have to increase. There's a little pointer on there, so you'll have to increase that pointer. Or if there's too much, you'll have to decrease it. But I would let it go through a few cycles to let it stabilize, and then you can do an adjustment on that. But yeah, working great. I'm just super excited. Hope you have a great day. Like, subscribe, come back for more. Oh, and P.S., when you are all finished with the testing, really the first thing you do, make sure to plug the unit in. I'll show you how to set the time in a second. But regardless, you should make it go through a cycle. So just turn the knob a little bit in, and then it's into the mode where it's going to start the regeneration process. Let it run through once, and you know, check things out. Check out the brine reservoir tank and everything. And to set the time, you just set it to the current time. And to do that, you just press in the red button, and you just rotate this to the current time. And you set that, and then it will regenerate. They're set to regenerate at like 2 in the morning. And then the last thing, now I've let mine sit for a few weeks. It's gone through a few cycles. And if you look down here, This is the, either your brine tank or your reservoir for your potassium permanganate. And all the water levels look good in there. It's not too high, it's not too low. So that tells me it's all working fine. So anyways, hope this was helpful. Like, subscribe, click the notifications, put a comment down below. Talk to you later. Thanks.